Page 16 continued. Question 19. The honey-bags still ... sleeping eyes bracket Roman 3I.1I.146 to 8 bracket closed para. In these lines quoted from first scene, Act 3, the Queen of the Fairies addresses her 4 attendant fairies. She gives them instructions as to how they are to minister to the comfort of Bottom with his ass's head, with whom she is now passionately in love, para. Under the influence of the flower, quote, love-in-idleness, unquote, comma, the fairy queen on waking begins to woo Bottom with ass's head. She persuades Bottom to stay on with her by offering to do all sorts of things for his pleasure and comfort. She calls her 4 attendants and directs them to different offices for the purpose of offering comforts to Bottom in the wood. They are to get the honey bags quietly from the humble bees without disturbing them. They are also to lead Bottom to bed by lighting wax tapers and to wait on him when he gets up. The wax for the tapers will have to be obtained by cropping the thighs of the humming bees, and the tapers will be lighted from the burning eyes of the glowworm. The fairies then will pluck the wings from the multicolored butterflies and use those wings as fans or shades to keep off the bright moonbeams from the eyes of Bottom when he is asleep. Titania, who is now carried away by her love for Bottom with his ass's head, thinks that even moonbeams may be a source of discomfort for his tender and delicate eyes. Page 70 notes honeybags. The small cysts, in which honey is carried, semicolon. Humblebees, humming bees, semicolon. Waxen, W-A-X-E-N, thighs, T-H-I-G-H-S, thighs laden with wax. It is said by many commentators that Shakespeare is mistaken in referring to the pollen on the legs of the bees as wax. But Shakespeare is a poet, and his poetic imagery is in no way impaired if the thighs of the bees are laden with wax and not with pollen. Bracket, pollen is imaged as wax. Bracket close, stop. Glowworm's eyes. The female glowworm, in fact, emits light from the end of the abdomen. Semicolon. Shakespeare may have known this and used eyes within quote, metaphorically. Act 3, Scene 2. 20. When they him spy ... away his fellows fly, comma, and at our stamp, comma, here over and over falls, bracket, Roman 3I.2I.19 to 25, bracket closed. These lines occur in the second scene of the third act and are spoken by Puck, P-U-C-K, in reply to Oberon's query as to the happenings in the wood. Puck narrates to him how he fixed an ass's head on Bottom and of the effect of his monstrous transformation on his comrades, who had gathered in the wood for the rehearsal of the interlude to be acted on the day of Theseus's marriage with Hippolyta, Hippolyta, stop. When Bottom reappears from the thicket, his head had been changed into that of an ass by mischievous Puck. At the sight of monstrous figure, his friends got frightened and dispersed in a helter-skelter, bracket, in disorderly haste, bracket closed, pushing and jostling everybody else and falling over one another in their stampede. Their hasty and frightened dispersal is likened by Puck to the flight of wild geese or grey-headed jackdaws when they notice the approach of a hunting sportsman and hear the report of his gun. These birds, as soon as they discover that somebody is approaching with a gun or they hear the report of the gun, rise above the ground, cawing all the while, and separate themselves in order to prevent the hunter from fixing his aim on any individual bird. In the same manner, the companions of Bottom ran away in utter confusion, each to a different direction. Notes: Russet, R-U-S-S-E-T hyphen pated, P-A-T-D. Grey-headed, coat, russet, unquote, seems to have been used for a range of dark grey colors from reddish brown to grey, the color of a jackdaw's head. Chew, C-H-O-U-G-H, jackdaws, semicolon. Sever themselves, scatter. At our stamp, at each foot stamp, bracket, suggesting that Puck, by stamping the ground, aggravated the confusion and disorderliness already created by the ass's head or bottom. Over and over one fails, one after another falls to the ground, indicating the extent of stampede and confusion. 21. I'll believe as soon as this whole earth, with the antipodes, Roman 3I.2I.52 to 55. These lines are quoted from the second scene of the third act, are said by Hermia in reply to Demetrius when they appear in the part of the wood outside Athens where Oberon and Puck talk about the happenings in the wood. Para. Demetrius takes exception to the rebukes showered on him by Hermia and says that she should reserve the rebukes for her enemy and not use on him who loves him so much. Hermia refuses to believe that Lysander has deserted her while she was asleep and thinks that the story of desertion by Lysander is absolutely absurd. Before believing this absurdity, she would believe that the earth may be pierced right through from surface to surface, and the moon, by creeping through the tunnel thus formed, appears suddenly on the other side of the earth, and thus cause annoyance to her brother. Page 18. The sun, who is holding sway on that side, being at that time at his zenith at the antipodes. In other words, as it is absurd for the moon, who is shining at night on this side of the earth, to appear suddenly on the other side where it is noon now, so it is absurd that Lysander deserted Hermia without a word while she was asleep. Notes: board, pierce through from surface to surface. Her brothers, the sun, apostrophe S, semicolon. Selene, S-E-L-E-N-E is capital. The moon was in classical mythology the twin sister of Helios, the sun. Whole, entire and impenetrable. Center, earth's midpoint, displeased by bringing night with it. Antipodes, dwellers on the vertically opposite side of the earth. Quote, displease her brothers, etc., unquote. It suggests that the sudden appearance of the moon on the other side of the globe will cause a displeasing feeling among the people of that region who are enjoying moontide. Such a sudden appearance of the moon there would be most unwelcome to them. 22. O brave touch, ... never adder stung. Bracket. Roman 3I.2I.69 to 72 bracket closed para. In these lines, quoted from the second scene of the third act, Hermia addresses Demetrius and rebukes him for murdering Lysander. Demetrius denies the charge but says, quote, he would rather give his carcass to the hounds, unquote. This confirms the belief of Hermia that Demetrius has killed Lysander, while the former was lying helplessly asleep in the wood. Para. Hermia expresses her bitterness towards Demetrius and becomes ironical in her tirade against him. She says that it was indeed, quote, a brave touch, unquote, that is, test of bravery, to have killed somebody when he is asleep and cannot defend himself. An ordinary serpent can do this as well, because a serpent often bites an unsuspecting man to death in a wood. Hermia continues to say that Demetrius has exactly acted like a serpent. A serpent is double-tongued, that is, it has a forced tongue. This suggests that it is deceitful and treacherous. Demetrius also has a double tongue, for he speaks sweetly to Hermia, but has killed her lover Lysander in his sleep, which in itself a heinously treacherous act. Even a serpent could not have been more treacherous, as Demetrius has been by killing the defenseless Lysander. Notes, brief touch, grand exploit, 71 to 3 compared 2.2.152 to 6, where Hermia dreamt she was attacked by a serpent, and 2.2.9 to 11, where the fairies protect Titania against snakes. Worm, snake, doubler tongue, 1, more forked, forked, as at 2.2.9. 2. More deceitful, It suggests the figurative idea of duplicity as well as the literal idea of being forked. 23. So sorrow's heaviness doeth heavier grow, ... I make some stay. Roman 3I.2I 84 to 87. Hermia leaves Demetrius after charging him with the guilt of the murder of Lysander in the second scene of the third act. Demetrius finds it useless to follow her any longer. He prefers rest and sleep. Para. Demetrius means here that loss of sleep in which sorrow may be forgotten makes sorrow heavier, that is, harder to bear. He prefers to stay there and try to have some sleep. Page 19, para. Demetrius suggests that the oppression of sorrow becomes more unbearable by reason of its debt to sleep, a debt which remains unpaid because of want of sleep. In the present condition of Demetrius, the grief with which he is burdened becomes more burdensome in consequence of the debt that sleep owes to sorrow not being paid. This debt will now be paid in some measure, that is, in part, if Demetrius waits here for some time for sleep's offer of such part, that is, sleep will come now, if he stays on here instead of uselessly running after Hermia. Notes, heaviness, ... heavier, playing on, quote, heavy, unquote, sad or burdensome. Heavy, weary, bankrupt sleep, because sleep is unable to pay its debt by not appearing. Tender, The offer made by sleep. This is the correct legal term for an offer in discharge of a debt. 24. Then fate overrules, that, one man holding troth, a million fail, confounding oath on oath. Roman 3I.2i 92-93. These lines occur in the second scene of the third act and are said by Puck in reply to Oberon, who takes him to task for having administered the love juice on the wrong person. Oberon points out to Puck that his mistake has made a true love turn false, that is made Lysander, who formerly loved Hermia, unfaithful to her now, while he wanted a false love, that is Demetrius, who wrongly loved Hermia, to turn true, that is love Helena. Para. Puck in reply tries to justify his own careless mistake by an argument which is not very convincing. What he means to say amounts to this: if what Oberon says has actually happened to these lovers, then they are only acting in accordance with the decree of fate. For fate ordains that for every man that is true in love, a million are false, breaking one oath after another. So it is fate that prevails and who is most often too strong for men's intentions. Note, in reply to Oberon's charge against Puck that his mistake will make a true lover turn false, Puck says that if so, fate has taken charge, since for each man who is true in love, a million fail, breaking oath after oath. Quote, fail, unquote, has two senses: default, because of fate, and cannot manage it. Quote, to confound, unquote, means to subvert. 25. Then will two at once woo one, that befall, preposterously. That befall preposterously. Roman 3I.2I.11222121. In these lines taken from the second scene of the third act, Puck addresses Oberon and says that he identified Hermia as the Athenian lady, and he anointed the eyes of Demetrius with the juice of the quote, love in idleness, unquote. But Hermia actually loves Lysander. Oberon discovered the mistake committed by Puck and saw the resulting mischief. When Hermia, who accused Demetrius for murdering Lysander, whom she loves, left and Demetrius lay down to sleep, Oberon sent Puck away to get Helena there so that she would be the first person on whom Demetrius's eyes might fall on her wake-up. Puck goes away and Oberon drops the juice on the eyes of Demetrius. Puck returns almost immediately to report that Helena is coming, followed by Lysander, passion, Telly, T-E-L-Y, pleading for her love. Oberon asks Puck to stand aside, unseen of course, as the noise made by Helena and Lysander may wake up Demetrius. Para. The above lines are then spoken by Puck, who always enjoys some mischief. He says if the noise created by Helena and Lysander rouses Demetrius from sleep, then a very funny situation will arise. Page 20. For when Demetrius wakes up with his eyes already anointed by Oberon, he will see Helena before him and will at once fall in love with her. Lysander, who has been anointed by Puck through mistake, is already in love with her. Thus, both the young men will start wooing, that is, making love to Helena at the same time. Puck, with his natural bent for mischief-making, enjoys things when they happen out of the natural course. Two men making amorous advances to the same lady at the same time will be enjoyable to mischievous Puck. As Puck imagines this situation, he is overjoyed, but Oberon wants Demetrius alone to love Helena. But the situation that will be created will be contrary to what is wanted by Oberon. Note: woo, W-O-O, make love. Needs be sport alone, needs, adverb here, sport, fun, alone, by itself, befall, happen preposterously, contrarily, bracket, literally, comma, the last thing happening first, bracket closed. In Shakespeare, the word keeps much of its etymological meaning. In modern English, it is used for indicating something absurd. 26. You do advance your cunning, O devilish holy fray. Roman 3i.2i.127 to 128. These lines are spoken by Helena to Lysander in the second scene of the third act. Helena protests against the latter's profession of love for her, para. Helena warns Lysander that whatever may be the language in which he tries to convince her of his love, she can see through it. Lysander was making his cunning more and more transparent by the apparently truthful language he uses. He no doubt vows his love towards her, but when one truth kills another, that is, when the truth of your vows to one of us, Hermia or me, destroys the truth of your vows to the other, then there must be a conflict which is at the same time wicked and holy. Wicked because your truth to one of us is diabolically, devilishly killed. Holy because truth has prevailed in the other. In other words, what kills it is the sanctity of your truth to the other. N.B. This is an instance of Shakespeare's earlier manner which has been called Shakespeare's conceit, C-O-N-C-E-I-T, by many commentators. 27. Weigh, W-E-I-G-H, oath with oath, ... both as light as tells. Roman 3i.2i.130 to 132. These lines are spoken by Helena to Lysander in the second scene of the third act. Helena protests against the latter's profession of love for her, para. Helena means to say here that Lysander vows in love to her, and he has already vowed his love to Hermia. Vows made to Hermia cancel the vows made to Helena. Thus, oaths cancel each other. When two oaths are put into scales, they become equal in weight, and so oaths become idle tales, that is, have no weight, no meaning. Vows become fictitious or falsehoods. Notes: Helena's argument is clear and poignant. She tries to indicate the deceit or cunning of Lysander in making vows of love to her. Even, equal, light as tells which are false and meaningless. 28. That pure congealed white, comma, high Taurus' snow, ... holds up thy hand. Roman 3i.2i, 141 to 143. These lines are said by Demetrius addressing Helena when he wakes up after his eyes have been anointed with the love juice by and sees Helena before him, para. Demetrius pays compliments to the complexion of Helena in hyperbolic metaphorical language by referring to the snow-covered peaks of the mountain chains of Taurus.